I would have to say that probably the single largest obstacle we faced was losing team members. We lost 2 team members within 2 months, and that hurt productivity a lot, like a whole lot, and changed a lot of things in our game that we had plans for doing, and it was based on a 5-man team, and in the end we just didn't have the people to do it.
The main skill that I learned while working on the game was working in blueprints, Unreal Engine's floors, visual scripting. I had no experience with blueprints before the game project, so it has been rewarding to learn ways to accomplish what I want with scripting and then see it work in the game. Another skill that I learned is how to create dynamic material instances so that I can change part of the material, like the pressure plates on the ruins island that change color when the character stands on them.
How did you solve the issue of making everything move?
How did we solve the issue of making everything move? Well, by everything I assume we mean all the islands, and it went through a few different iterations using what amounted to a basic matinee up to a truly dynamic island setup that allowed them to move more freely. But in the end, we actually ended up with the majority of our islands being static.
What issues, if any, arose from using new technology to create your game?
I would say that probably the single largest issue was that not everybody knew how to use it. The engine is actually a lot more stable than UE3, and most of the tools and UI elements are actually easier to use.
The issues that showed up from using the new Unreal Engine were mainly bugs such as the mouse cursor would sometimes become locked to one area of the screen. Also, a major issue was that before we upgraded to the 4.5 version of the engine, it would crash a lot, which significantly slowed down work.
How hard was it to shift from Kismet to Blueprints? Well, once you wrap your head around the idea that Kismet and Blueprints really are more or less exactly the same, they're both just visual scripting, and you stop thinking of them as different things, it's actually really not that hard.
Switching from Kismet to Blueprints for me was a little more difficult, but I think that's more because Blueprints can do so much more than Kismet could. It's basically the same thing, drag and drop, right click and add, nodes, drag your lines over. It's just goes so much farther in depth than Kismet ever did.
It wasn't that hard to shift from Kismet to Blueprints because they were similar in certain ways, like having nodes, outputs, and inputs that can be hooked up to other nodes. Also, there are tutorials and documentation for Blueprints that helped a lot. Did Blueprints make things easier or harder than having to write UScript?
Visual scripting is gotta be easier in almost every respect. There's times where it can be a little bit frustrating because you can get a little bit of lag in the UI, but aside from that, it actually felt just as powerful as if we were writing all our code in straight C++.